I'm watching.
All right, we are live, Ben. I'm going to bring up my screen here. All right, for you early birds out there well, I guess it doesn't matter where in the country you are. In Central, we are at 5 a.m. in the state of Kansas. And what you're looking at here is the live auction. Not even 20, we're about 21 hours in of a 72-hour live auction sale, and prices are dropping fast. I'm looking to swoop in here and buy my very first piece of Illuvium virtual land. And it's probably a little hard to see here, but this pink one up here is one of the two arenas that are the prime parcels within this sale. And down here I've got it narrowed down, filtered down to tier 2, which is where I'm trying to buy. And then it's just a matter of getting the best that I can within that
So
tier.
explain the tier system. There's tiers 1, 2, and 3, correct?
There's tiers 1 through 5, but the
Ooh,
auction
1 through
right
5.
now is only comprised of tiers 1 through 4. And basically, it's a Dutch auction, and at it starts way high. The idea with the Dutch auction is the pricing starts like ridiculously high, and it reduces 2.5% every minute until that parcel gets bought up. And so you're basically just watching it tick down, and that's what I'm doing here. It's at 1.3 ETH on tier 2 for this auction that started at 4 a.m. So just over an hour ago, right at an hour ago. And it's just about to hit the price where basically the floor gets liquidated, vaporized. And so trying to find the parcel that you really want to buy at the bottom barrel price is it's a bit nerve-wracking. Actually, it's clearing out. Like those just cleared out at 1.3. So this is interesting. So the floor cleared. It's been bouncing all over the place, Ben. At bottom it dropped to like 1.07 ETH, so just over 1 ETH. And now it's kind of bounced back up to, let's see. So there's still some at 1.2 here. So basically, essentially, the best of the tier 2, if you want to say that, are probably sold now. And so these have dropped just below the last round's floor, which is 1.3. These are at 1.28 now. And so these are probably getting picked up like really fast now.
Okay, so those prices right there in USD would be 2.8 or 1 point. Sorry, tell me that again. It's $1,800 per Ethereum right now. So what are
Yeah,
these prices going at?
1.82 is what 1.82 ETH is what they're selling for now.
So that's 1.82 is about $3,200 in USD at current Ethereum prices. And you're saying that some
No,
of them sold right
that can't be right.
1.82,
Well, 1.24 now.
1.24 at $1,800 is $2,200.
There you go.
Does that sound right?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Cool. Cool.
So basically, it's like it's. I guess the best way that I can compare it is it's like playing chess. Like there's all these different things. You're playing against the clock. You're playing against other buyers. You're playing against, the value of location. And as time goes on today, and as the sale continues on, there's a good chance that pricing will go back up again, although
right.
we're early enough that it could go down. So basically what's going through my head right now is, do I pull the trigger at as close to the floor price as I can get and basically just kind of take what I get as far as a parcel on the map? Or do I strategically plan out parcels that I want to get, which might might not be for sale until tomorrow or 2 hours from now or whatever, and wait those out, hoping that the pricing and that additional buyers don't show up into the market. And I don't know what the answer is there.
I don't know, but
Yeah.
maybe you can answer some more questions. So tell us, me and anybody watching, how many total units of land are being auctioned off in this 72-hour sale?
Yeah, there's 20,000 plots total. 20,000. There's 100,000 within Illuvium total. They've not said when the additional auctions will be.
Okay. So
But just
20,000 between these 3 days, and you said we're about 1 day in?
Yeah. It started it was either 7 or 8 a.m. my time yesterday. See,
Gotcha.
these are all.
So yeah, about 22 hours in.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys we're following, you can't see them, but they're on my tablet below. Scoriox, which when we did Illuvium, we watched several of his videos, and the guys that he's done, man, this I just let me just say I know how to pick them, Ben. And whether it's in my romantic relationship or professional virtual LAN gaming, Scoriox is a hidden gem, but he's quickly becoming well known. Anyways, so little pat on my back. So anyways, he
so
he's
you've
been
got
doing
you've got that unfiltered eye for talent.
Well,
You
I was
see
waiting for
stuff
you
that
to
people
agree
don't.
with me, and it got real awkward. And so let's move on. Anyways,
I won't make any jokes right now because I know we're live and it cannot be edited. So I'm not saying anything that Eric is going to come smack me in the head for.
This is serious business. These are all pending now. So I may have look like I probably missed the window here on this one. Lost track here. Oh, Scoriox has been running a 24-hour, and actually it's over 24 hours now, but he's had guests on that are involved in Illuvium, just people like us, but who, basically this is like Next Earth has kind of been our prime
Right.
metaverse that we've been into. These guys are into Illuvium. So he's been doing a 24-hour feed and just giving a bunch of good information. And mostly the consensus with Scoriox and these guys he's brought on has been that this window right now, and it's closing, they think is probably the best window to pick something up.
They think that because a big portion of the buyers of this project will be in America. It's early in America on a Friday morning. Most of them won't be awake and purchasing right now. There's still over a day left, so there's plenty of time for them to get in. So they thought that this would be the lull in the storm where you'd be able to come in and get some very reasonably priced parcels. That's why Ryan's up as early as he is. That's what he's looking for right now.
Call me crazy.
No, we're excited.
They just wiped it. I was just looking at one for 1.0, which it says it on here. Yeah, but it's not necessarily true either. By the time these things sell so fast, by the time they update. I wonder. I may have just figured out something.
You're going to jump ahead.
Haha. I just clicked sell, but it was already pending. So, okay, so that's all. So all tier 2 have left the building. That's the level I'm trying to buy in, is tier 2. But it looks like, and I can't tell for sure, but it looks like so they've got I don't know if you can see this at the bottom here. It's got all the pages. It's like countdown 1 through 9 here. These are all, and I've got it filtered to ending soon. So basically with the shortest amount of time, and that are currently on sale. And so when I was just going through these at the last minute to try and see what was available to buy, I started on page 1 and then went to page 2, page 3. It looks like possibly that's what might be what most buyers are doing. So if I was to start on page 2 at the end there's less people on page 2 trying to buy land there. Their majority, whatever, 60% of the buyers at that very second are on page 1, only 40% are on page 2. I might be able, if I start at page 2, grab something. And as far as I can tell, it's not like page 1 property is better than page 2. It's just
that makes sense. Just the order of the auction bill.
Yeah. But this has been the challenge. I was working yesterday, but I had this stream going most of the day. So just kind of watching, trying to figure out a strategy, that type of stuff. And there's so many moving pieces here.
Is that a tier 4 for sale?
Yeah.
Second one down?
Yeah. So I've got it filtered where I have, and I've been playing with this, but I've got it filtered where I have tier 4 in here also, because I figure if I can get a parcel that's also next to a tier 4 or really close to a tier 4,
idea.
So something like that. It's worth mentioning these tier 4s start out at 80 ETH. This one here is down to 13, which I'm guessing it's probably already sold, but yeah, it's sold for 15.
15 ETH. That's about $30,000.
Yeah. So for the most part, these are all selling right around 25% of their start price. And that's been almost since the beginning. Hey, I'm gonna step away for just a second. Do some juggling or something cool.
Okay. All right. Watch this. I don't even remember how to do that. There you go, like this. All right. If you're still watching, you know about as much as I do with the Illuvium land sale. We're watching Ryan, whose expertise is in real world real estate, as he's trying to learn and navigate the digital real estate business. We've bought land in Next Earth, which is a super easy, not an auction style. There's a set price if you're buying land that has not been purchased before. So that's easy to do. What he's doing right here is this Dutch style auction. So they're just popping up different lots with different parcels as it's coming in. He's looking for one to pull the trigger on. He's got a limited amount of Ethereum, so he wants to get the best possible parcel for the cheapest possible price. But the way that it's going is he's going to have to roll the dice, buy anything that he can afford, and hopefully it ends up in a good spot. He's got, let's see here. Somewhere in here is, oh, there we go. Oh, it won't even let me in without connecting my wallet. I will not be doing that. I'm in the private browser, so I don't have my wallet hooked up to this one. There we go. Here's the map of Illuvium. Looks like Australia, Madagascar, and the United Kingdom. These are some of the properties that have already been purchased. You can click on them, figure out any information. Oh, and it tells you what time the auction for that specific plot starts. Let's see here. Here's the different areas on the map. We'll go to the Halison Sea. Sort by time ending soonest. I've got my screen up there, but you can throw yours.
No. Yeah, you keep yours up for now. I think I'm really gonna try and make I feel the window closing. I'm gonna make a move, I think, on this one.
Okay.
So you can keep it going for a little while. And then
each one of these plots has different element sites or fuel sites.
Yeah, so depending on the tier, depends on how many fuel sites and element sites you have per plot. So obviously the higher the tier, the more. It's a variance of types, and the consensus is that for the most part, the consensus is that it's too early to know what types are going to be the best fuels and so forth. So
gotcha, yeah.
Essentially what you're buying right now is, what you can afford, but on the tier level, it's going to be the volume of output that these fuel sites and elements have. And that's where you sell, essentially, and I'm simplifying to some degree, but you'll sell fuel to the players because that's what they need to play the game. That's how you make a residual income. That's how the property's valued, so forth. Now there's some skins that can be created, and there's some special advantages for people that are buying within this first sale, so there's these other things that go into it. But for the most part, what you're focused on at this point, what's important is the tier and the mixture of element sites and fuel sites that you think are going to be the best. But that's a bit of a crapshoot at this point.
Right.
Okay, I'll be right back. I gotta grab my third cup of coffee.
So, for example, you can see on the screen that this tier 4 over here sold for 23.7 ETH. That's just shy of $50,000. That is a lot of money to throw on a crapshoot. Of course, a lot of these tier 4s are starting at 80 ETH, which is $160,000. So I guess if that's what they think that they're worth, then if you got it for $50,000, you got a hell of a deal. You got some tier 4s here I was pointing out that have sold for 23 to 26,000 or 26 ETH.
Yeah.
And everybody on the channel was just wondering why you don't put a little more money into this project.
That's a good point. Let me move some funds real quick. That's all it took. Yeah, no, you take, with investing, you have to take everything into account. Just like, you know, I've been doing some studying, trying to figure out the best times. You know, they're saying now's the window to buy. You take all those things into account, but I also have to take into account that the longer I'm playing on here trying to buy, I'm taking time away from other jobs or revenue sources and so forth. So you got, you know, it's hard to put a measurement on that, but not to mention I'm at 3 cups of coffee this morning, and that's 1 to 2 above what I normally drink. So I don't think I can continue to ingest
I
coffee.
don't think you could do that to your body.
Well, we're not all living machines like you, Ben.
Well, it's not easy. The sun comes up over here because of our angle. The sun comes up right before 4 a.m. and it doesn't get dark till about 10 a.m. So I've been waking up super early in the mornings, but only because by the time you come around at 5 o'clock in the morning, the sun is fully up and the world is going.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I feel the same. You know, I feel good when I wake up, but yeah, usually because I sleep right next to a window, so you kind of in that half sleep area where I've been basically awake for an hour, but with my eyes closed, but the sun's up and shining. So finally at 5 a.m., I'm like, all right, I'm up. But the day is already, I mean, it's like fully bright out by 5 a.m.
Oh, you get an early start over there in England.
Mm-hmm. But only at this time. In the winter, it's the exact opposite. And it's dark until 10 a.m. and then the sun goes down at 3 p.m. So there's a very small window of sunlight, especially on a gloomy day.
Yeah, that sucks. That's not a fair trade.
See what the Illuvium price is. Do you remember what Illuvium was when we did our episode?
The coin, the token?
Yeah.
I right around that time, it was either just below 600 or just above 600.
Oh, wow. So we're at half off on the token at 273.
Yes, and there is obviously if a project is good enough that I'm buying land in, you would imagine that the token that they have is also good enough to invest in.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's an understatement based on what they've built. So I'm definitely looking into, like, with reserve funds or whatever's left over, buying some of the token also. I don't quite know what they've talked a lot about it, but with me, with stuff like that, I need to hear it and also be able to read it. And they've talked a lot about because there's ILV and then there's SILV.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. That's SILV. Is that the 6 cents one? Is that what you're looking at? Can you tell? Escrowed Illuvium, SILV.
I think that's what people are using to purchase. They're burning the SILV gets burned, and that's what they're looking at purchasing. You can use ETH or SILV, and those who actually know what they're doing are using SILV. I am not. I'm using ETH, which they called a rookie mistake earlier in the show.
Well,
but I do not trust myself enough to try and convert it. Basically, you get a little bit more bang for your buck,
right?
If you're using SILV as opposed to.
Well, I feel like, yeah, if you would have bought SILV, it was less than 2 cents before the auction started, and it's at 6.5 cents now. So if you would have just converted your ETH to that, you would have already tripled your money. And actually, at one point, looks like this morning at would have been 2 a.m. your time, the price shot up to 31 cents per each one from 2 cents. And now it's back down to 6. So you could have 15 extra money if you would have sold at that one little spike. Not sure what happened there. Probably some big money buying into some SLV, if I had to guess. Somebody purchased that to buy some land.
You would,
something like that.
That would make sense to me. This is a prime example. You know, you only have so much time, and I've got it spread, you know, pretty wide. And I know when we covered Illuvium, at that time, I knew it was something I wanted to keep track of. We talked about it, the land and so forth. But the reality is there's so many things going on. Time, it was getting, you know, obviously our thriving show is demanding much of our time. TheMetaMentors, you've probably heard of us, but actually, if you're watching us right now, you're on one of our channels, so clearly you've heard of us. You only have so much time, and so Illuvium kept getting kind of pushed back until about a week ago, a little more. Then I was like, okay, the sale is right around the corner. I got to dial this in. Reason for my long story here is, if I had been more on the ball, I would have understood SILV and the staking and all that, because there's a huge opportunity in staking with this project, and I would have been more prepared. I'm not. I did get enough ETH bought to try and buy, and it looks like that's going to work out okay as long as I don't act like an idiot here before too long.
Well, and like you know how we go. I'm just explaining this to everybody who's watching or will watch this. We've kind of got a good separation between Ryan knowing what to do with real estate, and so he's in charge of buying and selling the lands on the metaverse, and I'm into the coins and the gameplay. And one of the things that we constantly talk about is how a lot of these projects have not hit their stride yet. So this one, especially Illuvium, it's just now doing its first land sale. So we haven't hit the good part of this game yet. And because of the market price, we're at 273 right now. And when we did our episode and we looked at all the market cap and stuff like that, it seemed like it was a pretty good price at between $500 and $600 would have been when we were doing that. And I forgot this. I know we mentioned it on that episode, but back in December of 2021, it was at $1,850 per coin. So we're 6x away from that at this point. You know what I mean? So like one of the things Ryan and I always talk about is how if you were to buy in right now and it just got back up to its all-time high, and most of these, especially this one, especially with a project with this kind of technology and artwork and community behind it, I wouldn't think that the all-time high is anything to worry about getting back. I would assume that's a given. That's just a matter of time, and then who knows where it can go beyond that. So if you bought Illuvium right now, it's almost a 7x just to get back to the all-time high, just because the whole market is down right now. If you can find a way to stake this on the project, well, you're just looking really good. Start earning the percentage of it right now at $273 a token and take it back up to just under 2,000.
Yeah, it is considered the very first AAA rated game on a blockchain, which essentially just means within crypto, which is, you and I, Ben, believe is, and when clearly we're not the only ones, because there's trillions of dollars invested into crypto now, but we believe this is not the future. It's happening right now, and most of the world has not woken up to it yet. So if you could, so what am I saying? If you can buy into the very first AAA rated game that appears to be, quite a bit ahead of the rest of the competition, and not only that, everything that they're putting out comparatively that I've seen and I believe you've seen is just
quality.
It's just first rate. Like
Yeah.
even this auction is absolutely ridiculous how well it is set up. The graphics, the IP, the performance, like it's like they, I don't know. It's very, very impressive. Very impressive.
Not like your typical, I don't want to say typical, but we've seen a lot of projects take the easy way out or do stuff that makes it to where it's not a simple process for purchasers or people following along, and that has not been the case with Illuvium.
No.
I've been very impressed with everything from Illuvium, but especially this auction. I mean, just bouncing around these websites, you can see the quality of this compared to a lot of our Web3 projects that we're looking at. It's huge. It's got a lot of activity. The graphics are amazing. There's just a lot going on here.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interworking pieces that benefit anybody that's bought into it, whether it's virtual land or the Illuviums that are actually going to be coming up for sale, which they're the creatures, whether it's the token, like they're really, really well. The founders, three brothers, have said they're giving 100% of the proceeds, 100% of the proceeds, not proceeds, 100% of the revenue, net revenue back to its players and owners. 100%. Yeah. So basically the way that anybody that's involved, like the owners of this company or anybody that's invested, the only way they're making money, and this is what I understand, is you have to own something within the property. So if you own, a good amount of tokens, you're going to have a large amount of the revenue that comes in because they're giving 100% of it. And that's really unheard of, but it's also genius because the idea is if we give 100% back, then that's going to invite a lot of players, like a lot of people are going to want to play.
A self-sustaining economy.
Exactly. Genius, if I do say so myself. All right, I've got a couple that I'm focusing in on here, so I'm going to kind of zone out a little bit and dial in a few things here so that I can hopefully make a move on this one.
Okay.
So don't bug me, Ben.
Just think out loud for us, will you?
Yeah, as I come across stuff that makes sense, I'll do that.
Okay, I'll be right back.
All right. If you're just now tuning into our live feed over the last couple minutes, this is the live Illuvium land auction. It's a 72-hour Dutch auction. We're coming up on like ending the first day of the auction. This is for virtual land within Illuvium 0. It's considered the very first AAA rated crypto game. It's not out on the market. It's very, very close to being out on the market. And this is a virtual land sale. So what you're watching is the live auction. I'm looking at trying to pick up a piece of land. If I'm successful here in the next about 20 to 30 minutes, 30 would be pushing it. The window will probably be gone. So it'll be closer to probably 20 minutes. I've got my eye on a couple pieces because I think they're good, but that also means they're probably going to go very fast. So I'm essentially just making my notes here, favoriting a few of them so that I can access them quickly. The way a Dutch auction works is it's basically they started the auction at an extremely high price, overpriced, and then they work backwards from there. And so most of what we call the floor price, the bottom price, where everything sells out, has been running at about 25% of the original asking price. And that's been happening here recently at about an hour or just over an hour into each auction. And each auction starts every hour. 278 plots, new plots roll out every hour. And roughly by an hour after an hour and 10 minutes at the most, they're all gone, which is just at the time or just following the time of the next set that have just rolled out of 278. So there's a lot of strategy behind this that I am not good at, but I think I've got dialed in a few things of what I believe makes a property valuable. And so I'm going after that type of property each hour until I snag the one I'm after. There's also the concern of, as the morning goes on, America wakes up and that's where majority of the buyers are. So the sooner I can get something bought now or early, the better off it's going to be. This red right here is one of two arenas within the game. So of 100,000 plots, there's only two of these. They're going to host esports events, get all sorts of battles and gaming and stuff there. So I'm trying to get as close to that as possible.
What'd you buy while I was gone?
Everything. I'm going to need a loan quick.
I bought 2 of the stadiums.
That's the beautiful thing about crypto, Ben, is you don't need a Western Union. You just send that right over to my wallet. I've got basically one right now that I've got favorited. Is that a word? Favorited?
Oh, yes.
Did it already go?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's Crimson Waste. I think it was Bright. Yes. Okay. So there's one. The chances of me picking it up, I think, are really slim. Very, very slim. But
Nope. You got to
basically,
think
my thought
positive.
process, huh?
You got to think positive. Can't have
Yeah.
no in your heart.
You think positive. I'll be realistic. Basically, my thought process is I'm going to wait till it's at the hour and then I'm going to buy regardless of what the price is. I already know that's going to be 1.2, 1.3, something like that. So until then, I'm doing some searching for anything else. I don't know what I'm doing here, but I've got these filters selected for on sale, which you have on sale, coming soon, sold, and expired. On sale would lead me to believe that I'm asking it only to show me what's available to buy right now. But instead, it's showing me what's for sale and everything that's coming soon. And I cleared the filters before thinking, oh, maybe it's just, backlogged or something, but that didn't do it.
I'm sure there's something we're just missing.
Most likely, because they pretty much thought of everything on this.
Well, like maybe coming soon, or for sale is everything that's for sale right now and available in this auction. And coming soon is stuff that's not available for sale right now, but will be coming soon in this auction. Maybe, I don't know. But
there's probably something there.
It
is a bunch of Aussies that are creating this, so who knows?
Well, and that's there is. You'll notice that in a lot of Web3 projects is we get tunnel vision to words, phrases, and aspects of American living, and you get to some of these other guys where it's like they just do things a little bit different. And you don't really think about it. It doesn't seem weird to them, so it seems weirder to you that they're not going, hey, this is how we're going to do that, or hey, when we're saying this word, this is what we mean.
Yeah.
So it is always interesting. I don't know if that's the case here, but there are just little tiny things about certain cultures that you really notice in Web3 because it's not just Americans.
Yeah. And you're definitely getting some exposure to that being in England.
Yeah, because England's not just England's its own little melting pot. There are more languages and more countries and more cultures here than there are anywhere that I've been in all of America.
Really?
Yeah,
just
it's
more central, huh?
Yeah, I think just because it's it's basically like crossing the Arkansas River to get to France or Belgium. So a lot of people come and go from here. London is like a permanent vacation for everybody. There's all sorts of languages, whole neighborhoods of different countries. So very interesting.
Yeah, I believe that. I mean, it just seems natural with its location.
Right. That's why I need to get back to America.
Quickly. So this is the sweet little parcel. This is essentially this is what I'm going for. I'm gunning for.
Boy, that's nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a winner. It is definitely, you can clearly tell it is a winner.
Yeah.
And the reason being is it's right next. It's essentially it's the only one that's selling this round this close to this arena.
That's cool.
So I'm
that'd be
I'm
great.
waiting for this price to drop down, but it's doing it. But mostly I'm waiting for the hour to come up, which is here in about a little more than 10 minutes, I think.
Nice.
And
that's when it finishes, or that's when it starts.
They basically there's a very good chance a property like this close to the arena, I absolutely guarantee you I'm not the only one watching it. So there's an obvious chance that somebody could swoop in at any point and take it because it's more valuable to them because of its location, which I would agree with also because that's why I'm buying it. I'm waiting an hour because it's right around that hour to an hour and 10 minutes, which is basically at the end of it that it gets swooped up. So basically what I'm doing is I'm waiting for it to get to an hour. I'm going to try and buy it most likely. If I get it, great. If it falls through, then I've got 5 to 10 minutes window to swoop up something else in there. Now, I'm not super excited I'm not going to immediately try to start buying something if I don't get this one because the others aren't as valuable as this one to me. So I'll probably wait till an hour and 5 minutes, an hour and 7 minutes, something like that, and try to grab something.
Gotcha.
I'm also hoping, because the price jumped up just a little bit the last 2 rounds on this, and it's been kind of doing a deal where it'll bottom out and then it'll come back up a little bit and then it'll start going back down again. And so I'm hoping that maybe this might start going down on a downward turn again. As a reminder for those who are watching us, they're reducing the price every minute by 2.5%. This is a Dutch auction. They start a new round of plots of land. There's 278 per hour that they're dumping onto the market that reduce 2.5% every minute until they get bought up. This round started at basically 50 minutes ago, and they've been selling. They're selling along the way, but they've been liquidating between an hour and 10 minutes on the market.
That's such an interesting. So when it's going, it's dropping down. Like say it starts at, we'll say 1 ETH, then 0.9, then 0.8. If somebody buys it there, is it done, or does it then bounce up to 0.9 and then continue like a regular auction? Or is it?
I'm sorry.
As soon as it gets
ask the question again.
I guess I'm a little confused on how the Dutch auction works, but mostly I'm going to pretend that I understand it. I just want you to explain it to the viewers. If it starts
that are watching the show that don't understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if it starts at 2 ETH and then goes to 1.9 and then 1.8, if you jump in and click buy it at 1.8, is that yours?
Yeah.
Is that how? Okay. So it's not like then it goes up to 1.9 and then somebody can continue to purchase above it.
Oh, yeah. Like a traditional auction. No, they call that an English auction, which is how they're doing the 2 arenas, the tier 5s, which that was supposed to be. They delayed that. That was going to be happening the same time as this. It was going to run the full 72 hours as an English auction. So you just bid up till the end of the auction and it gets snatched. But they actually, the program they were going to use for that auction, they had a security breach or something showed up. I don't think they had a security breach. I think maybe the auditor caught something and was like, hey,
it was a potential
some major risk if you try to move forward with this. At least that's what they've said. And this project's been over the top upfront about stuff. So I believe them.
Right.
So they're not auctioning these. It sounds like it's going to follow. I think it said like within a week, they think they'll get, to be safe and whatever, but what you're describing is an English auction.
Okay.
A Dutch auction starts like ridiculously high and drops in this case every minute until the land gets bought.
Interesting. Yeah, I that's super cool. And I would like to see those arenas go for sale. I'd like to follow along on that auction. That'd be interesting because those are going to go. I mean, and the reason they're going English auction is because they don't want to put a cap. They don't want to say, okay, we're going to start it at 80 ETH, and somebody goes, I'll take it. You can go the other way with something like that. There aren't as many of them, so they can afford the bandwidth and the space, and they can spread that out because who knows what those could go for? Who knows what company is going to want to come in and buy those? So that's super interesting. I would love to watch that.
Correct. So just as reference, we're about 52, 53 minutes into it, something like that. There's currently 8 pages of tier 2, which is where I'm trying to buy, that are still counting down. So pretty, 8 pages with, I don't know, 10 to 12 plots per page. So, somewhere in there, 80 to 100 plots of land, 80 to 90 some plots of land, 50 some minutes into it at 1.6. So essentially, why does that matter to me or anyone that's buying? I'm trying to pick up this specific property that I've got favorited. Is favorited a word?
Favorited is a word.
Okay. So my plan is to pick up this specific property once it gets down a little bit further here in about 5 to 7 minutes. See, sale pending, 1.6. So somebody, obviously, that's where they felt the value was. So now that's out. So now I'm going to remove my favorites. Going to reapply. And now I've got roughly 8 pages worth. So now it becomes a deal of, I don't have enough time to investigate, which I think is better, although I can narrow it down to the actual worlds that have the arenas in it, which I think are better value.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not quite as narrowed down, but at least get it somewhere in the same neighborhood.
Yeah. So then, of course, that switches my strategy a little bit, because it's like, okay, then I'm going to have to buy a little bit sooner, is where if I don't select any of the worlds, I can just try to wait for it to really bottom out. I like the bottom, right? Or Ben, all about the bottom.
Just watching you do this, it makes it. I've had a little bit of not an issue, but just a knowledge gap when places like Next Earth and places like Digital Landowner Society, they talk about digital real estate agents or companies that are involved in acquiring real estate for clients on the metaverse. And it's like, surely you wouldn't need that because you could just sit at your computer and do whatever. But this would be a perfect situation where if you had a digital realtor where you could say, look, I want something as close as possible to the arena, you know what I mean? And have them and their teams and their technology doing the footwork, doing the research and going, okay, that one sold for 1.6. So your next best option is this, you know what I mean? And having preferably a team ready to go, working with a team or multiple, a single or multiple clients, and going, okay, here's your next best option if within your parameters for what you're looking for. If you're looking for one that's close to that, here's the next closest. Here's what it's got on there. The last one went for 1.6. Do you want to come in at 1.7 or do you want to see, you know what I mean? And having somebody that's actually on your side and working, that's interesting.
Yeah. And so for me, that would be like a scenario like that specifically would be for like a very special client or high-end client.
Right.
Otherwise, I would have they're like, hey, here's the criteria. We're wanting to buy in this metaverse or one of these 2 metaverses. It's got to meet these 3 points. We'll pay up to this price.
Right.
And so because I don't want to have to be on most sales, unless it's a very prime client, I'm not trying to get you on the phone to get an okay to go ahead and buy this property, unless there's not in a situation like this where it's counting down, but yeah, you can quickly see, because I'm in agreement with you initially, getting into this, you're like, well, how much need could there be? Well, the more you get into this, especially with the vast amount of projects that are coming up, the more you can see.
Yeah. Well, if you had a realtor that could, if you said, look, I'm looking for something, I'm looking for a good piece of property that's at around this price, that whatever project it's in, it's next to something that's good, or here's what I want to do with it. I want to build it up and advertise my real world, something like that, where they can say, okay, we've got 5 projects for you. Here's what the land would look like in this one. This is what you'd be next. You know what I mean? To actually acquire the information and the data, just as if you were looking to put up a McDonald's franchise in the real world. here's what I'm looking for. Here's the reason that I want this property. Go earn your commission and come back and show me what's available. And, right now, it's anybody's game because these worlds are open. But once these are sold, then you're going to have to buy them on the second-hand market, the secondary market. So then you're going to have to be getting in touch with individual sellers, finding individual buyers, finding, you know what I mean? If they're selling 10,000, 20,000 parcels in this auction, I mean, this is one project with 20,000 parcels this round. You're going to have a lot of available real estate in the metaverse available in the next 10 years. And depending on what people figure out that they are able to do with it, depending on how people figure out how to build it out,
you can imagine if you have the right tool set and knowledge, it's pretty infinite.
Yeah, and that's why you were pretty adamant about getting in on the Digital Landowner Society.
There you go. That's where I was just headed.
Yeah, because they've got the set of tools as well as the broad range of information. Yeah, for sure.
That's one of the biggest things, that we talked about early on that I noticed is the openness of community and experts within. I mean, take Digital Landowner Society. I've either got into for free or very cheaply a couple projects now just from guys that I would consider experts that belong to the Digital Landowner Society, and they're just sharing wealths of information. Yeah. And so you buy an avatar into that, you get access to these tools, you get access to some utility and residual income, but you also get access to some of these private chats with, like, I would consider experts. I'm thinking of one guy specifically. He's been involved since like 2013 in crypto and owns a bunch of stuff. And he's a wealth of information, and he's constantly on there sharing it. So a guy like Sessions, what's it worth? Is it, what's it worth to get access to that knowledge? So we're at an hour here, and I've not settled on any specific properties. So I'm going to I'm waiting it out a little bit longer, and I'm going to just try and pull the trigger and get something. I kind of like this one up here at the top. I'm watching that one for sure. Oh, dang it. I almost got real excited there. Oh, it's a tier 4. Never mind. I do kind of like this one here. It's somewhat close to the arena. It's a little ways away. It's also in between 3 plots of land here, types of land.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a good idea.
And this is on page 2 here. Oh, there's another one right there too. Okay, well, so sell pending. Yeah. What do I do, Ben? Tell me what to do. I want to see it drop to 1.2. If it makes it there, I'll try and buy it. Although this thing is delayed, so it could already be gone.
That's
here we go.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, looks like it's doing it. I might have swooped it.
Hurry it up. Accept it.
$7. $2,300 is what it looks like.
Did you get it?
It's processing it, and when I've played around with this, when I've haven't made it this far before where it times out on me. So I'm thinking I probably got it.
All right. We're going to be rich.
And I contributed to, and the gas was only $7. So that makes it an even better value. I didn't pay $200 in gas fees, or $100 even.
And that's the benefit. One of the things that they're doing, rather than opening it up all at once to be purchased.
Look at it.
All right.
Now it's minting. So
we're in.
So here's something interesting about this. So the sale is going on Ethereum, blockchain Ethereum, and but it's minting. And for those who are not familiar with Web3 yet, minting just means basically it's confirming my ownership. It's minting on the Immutable X blockchain. So, which there's no gas fee or anything for that. But the idea there, like we've talked before, is Ethereum is way too hard. It's too busy. It's too expensive to run an actual play to earn game on. But Immutable X is a smaller blockchain that minimal to no cost to operate on and doesn't have the traffic. So you're buying on Ethereum because it just makes sense, for lack of better words, but you're going to be playing on Immutable X, and wherever you're playing is where it obviously has to be minted to. And I had to go through a process up here. You can't hardly tell, but basically I had to log into, once I got on the site here, I had to log into my MetaMask and then connect to Immutable X, which is the IMX up here. And so I had to connect to both of them. So essentially I connected MetaMask to Illuvium, and MetaMask connected to IMX, Immutable X blockchain. So it's basically doing the whole process for me. There was something else I was going to say here. Well, damn, I hope this thing, it's telling me, okay, yeah, sold for 1.282. Plot minted successful. I'm an actual landowner within Illuvium.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
And so here's what I bought. Solon Trench and Hyperion Reservoir fuels. So I don't know what that means, but a lot
of that stuff we won't know until the game really gets going. So
yeah,
but all of the plots of land have different resources on there that will be usable, mineable.
Oh, wait a second.
You go buy another one?
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Good. What?
Well, this symbol is what I was seeing earlier, that I was like, this guy's bought a shit ton of property in this area. But I think that symbol is just maybe what they attach to sold property or something. I don't know.
Gotcha.
But I thought for a second, I was like, oh shit, I didn't get it. Somebody else swooped in at the last. What did I get, Ben? Should I list it for sale?
75 ETH.
All jokes aside, there's like right off the bat, of course, people were listing for sale also, and some of it, below. I don't know how this works. I don't know if people are getting a discount that I don't know about because then they're relisting for less money, or what the deal is.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was just going to say it would make sense to list it for, like say you wanted one that was real close to the arena and you're watching it go from 1.8 to 1.6 to 1.4 and you're hoping it gets to 1.2 and somebody buys it, but you're like, that's really the one that I want. They bought it for 1.4, but you really would have bought it for 1.8. You know what I mean? Like you could probably turn around and do some arbitrage and sell some, because the way a Dutch auction works, it's like I'd pay $2,000 dollars for this. I'd pay a full ETH, you know what I mean? But it's like, but if nobody else wants it, I'll try to get it for half an ETH. And then when it goes for 0.6, you're like, I should have just bought it at 2. You know what I mean?
100%. Yeah,
that's
and especially because you can build what they call mega cities, which so you need to, in order to do that, you need plots of land all next to each other. And so, you know, if you've got somebody that owns several plots right next to each other and you've got one that's within, you know, right next to it and they need it, it's worth a little bit more money to them. So I'm just clicking. This is giving me, you know, this is giving me even a little bit more. And obviously we're basically just coming up on the first 24 hours at the auction. So we've got 2 more days to go. So we'll see what happens, but I'm clicking on the pieces that are around me and they've all sold for more than what I bought. Like this one's I bought for 1.2 ETH. This one this sold at 2.6 right next to me. That auction's coming up. This one sold for 1.6. Oh, there were several more here, but anyways, they all sold. The ones that have auctioned have all sold for more than what I paid there. That's not, you know, 1.4 there. You can't 1.7. You can't take. I'm not taking anything to the bank on that, but to me, that's at least a decent sign. Another attribute of this plot of land, which I think will pay off, but is a complete gamble, and so therefore it didn't affect my decision to buy. But my piece here is sitting on the edge here with only one other plot touching it. So I'd like to believe that this is the first, you can tell I've been up for a little while. This is the first auction of 20,000 plots. There's 100,000 total. This is the first 20,000 to sell. So that would lead me to believe that in the future auctions, these are going to fill in here. The longer time goes on, the more people are going to know about this project. Right. And the project's going to eventually roll out probably before all the land goes up for sale, those type of things, I think. So I'd like to believe that the land around here is probably going to sell for more in the future, especially because the market is, you know, down quite a bit. So it'll be very interesting to see, like, because Scoriox has kind of been given his input on what he thinks about these fuel sites and features and stuff like that. I'd love to hear what he has to say about mine. I'm gonna send him a message because him and I are boys, so I'm sure he'll probably have me on the show. So
probably.
You're still my favorite though, Ben. Don't get jealous.
Right, I appreciate it.
Hang in there. Well, now that I'm an official expert on Illuvium virtual land, I'm sure there's questions you're dying to ask me, Ben.
What are you building on it?
You know, so good question. I didn't think you built anything on it originally. I thought you buy the land for the fuel, which players need to be able to play the game. So there's the residual income aspect of it. What is this? Hold on a second. Okay. So initially, I thought that you're buying virtual land to provide fuel for players, and Illuvium, the game, the owners, the builders have decided that 5% of all profit from the game is going to go to landowners. So you're buying a residual income asset. Well, okay. Turns out there's way more to it. There is the ability to build structures on it. It also produces skins that you can, they call them blueprints, and they're for the alluvials. And so there's more to it here, but basically you can scan your property for alluvial DNA that may have passed through, and then you can create one of one NFT skins that are called blueprints that you can either keep and lease out or sell, or, you know, so if you have a rare, so that's part of the strategy here is if you have a rare alluvial within the world you're buying. So like I just bought in Crimson Waste. So there's going to be certain alluvials that are specific to Crimson Waste. Some of them more rare than others. So if one of those rare ones comes across, I get its DNA, I could create a one-of-one blueprint NFT of it. The rarer it is, the more in demand they're going to be for players. So there's that option also. And then there's some other bits and pieces that I picked up on. But essentially what I'm telling you on the question is I bought for the residual income of the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll be worth it alone.
And based on, and it's a complete, nobody knows, but based on the numbers that Scoriox and his buddies have come up with, essentially what I just bought this property at, we believe the ROI will be 12 months. I'll have my return on investment in 12 months. The rest
from today?
Yes, because the range I just bought it in would put me at an ROI. If it essentially they're predicting the game is going to do $1.5 billion within a year of its first rollout. Based on 1.5 billion in performance, if I bought my land at about 25%, which I actually bought it at about 21% of the original price, but if you buy it at about 25% of the price, then your ROI your return on investment is going to be about a year. And so I'm actually a little bit below that, but we also need 1.5 billion in gaming and revenue in the first year. Yeah, and the way they came up with that number is they took the average of 3 games. I think Pokemon Go, Axie Infinity for sure, and then another one. They took the average of those 3, which is what they're kind of comparing Illuvium against, and that's how they came up with that 1.5 billion. That's what those games did, roughly in their first year, if I remember correctly, is what he was saying.
That's cool. That's good information.
I thought so. Now, and that's okay. And so that's just off the fuel. So if you're selling blueprints or doing some of that, that's, on top of it.
Yeah. Plus anything else that, whatever else you can figure out, whether you're renting or doing anything like that. So yeah, man, that's cool. And 12 months turnaround, that's nothing. That, I don't know where the industry will be, but if you could pull it off in 12 months and the industry recovers and everything's booming, that's nice.
Yeah. I mean,
congratulations.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that the name of the game? I mean, we're doing this because we're in agreement enough that we're putting our own money into, because these are considered risky investments. I don't consider them that risky. Not the reward versus what the risk is. To me, it's very minimal. That being said, you have to be careful not to get carried away. It's very easy, like we've talked about so much, to get FOMO in, fear of missing out, and because the opportunity does look so ridiculously good with these. But only time will tell. And so, like everybody says, and we say, you got to, only invest what you're willing to lose. And they were overnight, this group, Scoriox, and them were talking about it. And that's the reality, is you really got to look at this as you're putting money in and you're not expecting any return whatsoever. Like if you lose it all, you need to be okay with that. And it's one thing to say that. It's one thing to actually stop now and say, okay, I just put in $2,200 on a virtual piece of property. What the hell is wrong with me? That sounds ludicrous. But if you've seen what you and I have seen, it's the complete opposite of ludicrous.
Right.
It is a super cheap investment with high potential.
Right. And it's, yeah, because there's always the resale factor. You may be able to unload it for the same or more than, but yeah, if it's got residual income, then it's the sooner you buy it, the longer you hold it, the more it's worth, the more money you're making. That's excellent.
But yeah, so long story short, time will tell. And it might be 3 months, it might be 3 years, it might be
We'll
10
have
years.
a 1 year update episode next June, and we'll go over where you're at.
So I've got, because that went so fairly well for me, I've got 0.5 ETH still left in my account. Of that, I was prepared to spend all of it on one land. The way tier 1 has been going, I should be able to pick up one more, or I could pick up a tier 1. I just bought a tier 2. So now the question, of course, becomes, do I think enough of this project to go ahead and buy another one property? And the advantage there for me is I have two, so I could sell one down the road if I want, or it's
Right.
it's going to create income also and stuff. And the value opportunity between tier 2 and tier 1 is immensely different. Like, it's much larger, to the point that the conversation many times with Scoriox has been, if you have the opportunity to buy 3 tier 1s in different regions or 1 tier 2, which do you buy? And all of that group had agreed tier 2 is what you buy. The numbers are much better there, which I'm not going to go into detail with. So that being said, a tier 1 is not nearly worth the value of a tier 2. So do I go ahead and buy another tier 1 so that I have a second property, or do I put it into the ILV token gaming to stake and do things like that, because there's some massive advantage there? Or do I just keep it for another project? Because let's be honest, I need want to buy more land in Next Earth. And speaking of, they gave out their AMA yesterday, and I noticed NXTT spiked, took a big jump yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yes. So I haven't listened to it yet, but I'm wondering if there was some.
I know they were going to clarify their staking procedure. That was one of the things that they were talking about. So maybe they've got good news for that.
That would be enough to do it.
Yeah. I'm up to 280,000 NXTT tokens.
Gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
Gorgeous.
Nice little spike there. Cool.
Yeah, I'm feeling really pretty good right now, man. Between the projects that we've invested in, like we've spoken about, I don't want to put my foot in my mouth here, but I don't know how you and I could have been as lucky as we are. Not saying they're the best projects, but I feel like all of them are at the very top of their game. I think they're all within. And again, we're doing this channel, the MetaMentors, because we're exploring these worlds, games, Web3, blockchain. We're doing the work for ourselves. We created the channel to bring people like us along with us, because if we're going to do the work anyways,
right,
why not let people learn from our mistakes or what we're finding or whatever? It's the community aspect of Web3 through and through. That said, we've been at this since February. We've I don't know how you feel, but my knowledge has jumped 1,000% since the start. that said, we've only made it through so many projects. And I say all that to say, I feel like the projects we're invested in are in the top 10% of what we've looked at, but who really knows? I mean, almost every other week we come across a project. And like you say, 2 weeks ago, I didn't even know about this project. And now I think it's the number 2 project, we've looked,
Right. Now it's a top 3 project.
Yeah. So it's all a gamble, for sure. That's why you got to do it with money you're willing to lose. But that's definitely easier said than done. So now all I'm doing is I'm looking. I filtered down to tier 1s. I left tier 4 and tier 5 in here because, again, I feel like the closer you can be to that, the better.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I would not have thought of that. I like the way because that just shows you where the high value ones are. And if you can't afford a high value one, then you might as well get one as close to possible as a high value one.
Let me dig into what you just said just for a second there. Really think about what you just said. You said you wouldn't have thought of that. Had you had money on the table and you were looking at this, do you think you probably would have thought of that? The reason I'm asking is because that seems like an absolute no-brainer to me. So if you're saying that, that tells me I have a little bit of edge there that I'm taking for granted.
I'm being 100% serious. Even if I thought about it, I don't think I would have. Even if I'd have tried to figure out what's the best thing. I mean, I might have tried to get closer to the lake or something like that, but I would not have thought about putting it next to a high value property, only a geographic location, like a lake or mountain or a river, or something like that. I would have looked for something anywhere close to that. But no, I did not think of finding a tier 5 and sticking one right next to that. It makes sense to go next to the arena, or somewhere like that. But no, I would not have, and maybe other people would have, but I think that's your real estate brain going, there's inherent value in having the cheap property next to the expensive property.
That's interesting because I was actually just having this conversation 2 days ago with somebody that I've realized that and this has really just happened in the last couple of years, my depth of knowledge, which has almost come through trial and error, screwing shit up for years, but my depth of knowledge now has gotten to the point that I talk about things, and I used to be able to gauge that. They're probably that I'm talking to Ben. He's probably not going to recognize this. I better explain this a little bit. That gap has grown tremendously. Like where now I'm talking to people and I just feel like they know what I'm talking about, and then I talk for 2 minutes and they're like, "I didn't understand a freaking thing you just said." I'm like, "Well, by freaking thing, you got half of what I said, right?" And they're like, "No, I didn't." And I'm thinking, right. To me, I'm thinking, this is like 101 stuff we're talking about. Like, how did you not know any of that stuff? And I don't say that at all to say anything about me. It just tells me that I don't recognize the depth of knowledge that I've gained over years.
And you're speaking specifically about like the Web3 stuff when you're talking about this?
Well, or real estate and Web3.
In real estate. Gotcha. Yeah, because I can imagine, sometimes you'll talk to somebody and they say, "Oh, are you buying some Bitcoin?" And you say, "Oh, I'm actually not buying Bitcoin. I'm buying some of the Crow coin. I've got some Ethereum and blah." And they're like, "Is that like Bitcoin?" And it's like, "Oh, okay." You're not really sure where their level is, especially in Web3.
Yeah.
All of it to my mom is Bitcoin. If I said I bought some property in NXTT, "Oh, is that like Bitcoin?" But then there's other people that are following along a little bit that have a better understanding. But it's hard to gauge when somebody walks up to you blank and goes, "How do I invest in Bitcoin?" Or "How do I invest in crypto?" And it's like, well, the first thing you want to do is get a Coinbase. And they go, no, I've got a Coinbase. I've got some Bitcoin. I've got this, and this. But I'm asking, like, what's a good strategy? And it's like, oh, okay. jump to the next level. But yeah, I can imagine with you, and especially only because I think you're around more people in the real world than I am. Like I only talk through here, so the people that seek me out, I assume, are at least up to the level where they've seen the episodes or have an idea of what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know how it is at workplaces or at fire stations where they walk up. It's like, well, he could either be somebody who's already bought NFTs and is looking to buy metaverse real estate, or
Right.
he could be somebody that thinks everything on the computer is a Bitcoin.
Right.
You just don't know.
Yeah. And it's so vast, and it is funny because like we've talked numerous times about about uh about projects and these things, and it's funny that somehow you and I became the expert amongst anybody that is within our touch. Like it's like, wait a second,
Right.
like we're trying to figure this out. Like I know our
Right. And
channel
well, and
says
that's
mentors, but
right. And you're exactly right. That's the hardest thing, is because if we go talk to anybody in the industry, they're like, you guys are dumb. Like, you guys don't know anything. And it's like, I know we don't. That's what we're trying to figure out. But there's just such a knowledge gap in the industry. There's so much to know. There's so much possibilities with Web3 that, yeah, like you said, just having 4 or 5 months worth of episodes that we've done, we're light years ahead of the common person and still light years behind anybody who's been doing this for a year.
yeah, it's not even close, and it's super fascinating. It's also super scary, and you also realize, which it's easy to do because the knowledge is so vast here, you have to ground yourself in things that make sense, or things that you know to be true. And for me, the only way that I've ever been able to do that is to expose myself to a vast amount of knowledge, or within an industry, which you listening to myself say that, it's like, well, yeah, no shit. But that's not necessarily the case. I know guys that or girls that are very good at what they do, and they got that way not because they took in vast amount of information. They just knew the right things to look for to excel. That now that's those type of people are more limited. But my whole life has been about pounding away at whatever it is I'm interested in until I gain enough knowledge or screw it up enough that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that again. So I must, now that I know that's not the way to go, I'll go the opposite way. And that turns out to be the best way.
Yeah, I've always described it as like bowling with the bumpers on. And you just throw that ball as fast down there as you can. And if you're going and it hits the bumper, then it's like you're at 100%, 100 miles per hour. You hit that bumper, not working this way, you just start bouncing this way. But long as you go in the right direction, those bumpers will eventually get you down the lane. Your goal is to go as fast as possible.
That's about a perfect analogy, because that's really what it is.
Yeah, just go until you hit something, then deflect off of that, keep heading forward, but just try to straighten out as you're going. And
Yeah,
it's an interesting industry, but when you realize how much you don't know, it makes you feel so good to know that you're in it right now, because there's a lot of smart people and a lot of rich people who don't know about all this stuff that's going on right now. Right now, even if a rich person was like, I think I will buy some land in Illuvium, there's such a knowledge gap to be able to set everything up and get ready and go and buy some. There are people that have the money, couple grand to burn, to take a chance on that, but it's not like a casino where you can just go throw your money on the table and get it done.
Yes.
There is a process that has to be done. You can't just, get pushed around by people with money. You have to be in and you have to know what all this stuff's about. And I know we talk about this on the channel, but that's the reason for the channel, is while we were trying to figure this stuff out, we just figured we'd bring along as many people as we can, especially friends and family, because it never fails. Once somebody finds out that you've bought land in Illuvium, their next question is, I was wondering, how do I do that? Or I wanted to buy this, or I wanted to do that. And if we can show them step by step and show them what we're buying, the projects we're getting into, the wallets and the exchanges that we're using, I just think that's, rather than telling the same story 500 times, if we get a nice, good, clean channel with very clear, concise videos that say, here's how you start. You know, if you're a tier 1 just figuring it out, this is where you start. If you're tier 2 and you've got your MetaMask wallet and you're set up with an exchange, here's what you're looking for. Then 3, 4, and 5, you know, down to where here's how you build on your metaverse property. And we'll get there one day. And hopefully a lot of our friends will too. And hopefully by 2030, we'll all be well invested and well taken care of by the Web3 industry.
Yeah. And it seems like, based on talking to people that have been at it for a while, it seems like it's a foregone conclusion, because you talk to somebody that got involved, 2 years ago, let alone 5 and 10, like, somebody gave them 10,000 Bitcoin, or, 100 or 100 ETH as a tip or whatever. Like, now, granted, there's been, sorry, I'm putting out
That's
our
all right.
feed on some of the other social channels. Now there's way more projects in crypto now than there was 6 months ago, let alone 2 years ago, 10 years ago, or whatever. So it's a little bit harder, but it's also much more advanced. So look at the risk however you want, but it's changed immensely, which leads us back to the whole thing that when you have a technology that's this advanced, this powerful, that affects this many things within our world, then that, to me, that reduces the risk. We're not buying into a project or a world where we think this is going to be the next, whatever, airplane or whatever. Like, we're buying into a technology that is attacking everything because it is such a superior. What am I trying to say? The technology is so superior that every industry in the world wants to be involved with it because it just makes too much sense. So how much risk are we really taking? To you and I, it's not.
Yeah.
Not risk.
Not risky. Not risky. It's just a matter of, and that's why we talked about buying it in several different projects. Axie may not be the end all be all game. Illuvium might not be the top game for forever. But if you are buying into several projects and buying into the projects that support those projects, i.e., the coins and the Unreal engines and the engine coin, just stuff like that they're using it, the Ethereum token, the networks that they're running on, Solana, stuff like that, it's going to go up. And if you play your cards right and pay attention, when it goes up significantly, get some of your money out. Take some of your profit off the table, reinvest it in smaller other projects. And the industry as a whole is, it's like betting on websites in the late 1990s. Most of them aren't around today, or at least not at the prices that they were. But
Right.
You wouldn't have had to invest in most of them. If you just picked a dozen of them and one of those was Google, then you still won. It doesn't matter what you put in the other ones. These projects that 100x, I think about this by buying the coins. All I need is for something to 100x. If I bought 10 projects, if I put $1,000 into their coin, into 10 projects, that's $10,000. If one of them 100Xs and the other ones all go to zero, I still profit $90,000. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
all I need is one of them to 100X and you've won. And if one of them 25Xs and one of them 100Xs and one of them goes to zero, it's like there's a big window for profit in there. And we're so early. I think 100X on some of these is pretty,
No doubt.
low hanging fruit. I think, and that's what I talked to you about earlier this week. Was I'm working on a strategy, on a set strategy, so I don't have to play with emotions on some of these projects that I'm buying the coins in, to where it's just mathematical. Once it 100x's or once it hits a certain multiple of what I've invested, then I'm going to take out a certain percentage and leave in this. And that way I'm actually taking my money and not waiting like I've done so many times, riding it all the way up and then riding it all the way back down. There is money to be made, but you have to get it in and out of the market at some point. And there's,
Yeah. Fun.
yeah, go ahead.
No. Yeah. Obviously full agreement with you there. The more and you can tell I'm tired. Not that I am a wordsmith anyways, but the more parameters that you have for buying and selling or what you're looking for,
Right.
I don't think anybody disagrees with that. Now, there's some traders can do it with a little bit of emotion or gut feeling or whatever. But it's funny you say that, because 2 days ago, I had the privilege to talk to, although he was very humble, I would consider him a
Crypto expert.
You can't even call him. He owns crypto and Ethereum, but him and his buddy several years back created or had a program written to buy and sell Bitcoin and Ethereum. And so it operates on its own. I don't know this guy personally. He came through a friend of ours, actually a fireman, which I won't say his name on here, but you know him. I'll tell you offline. But it's a family member of his who's been ultra successful in business, period, and got involved. So anyways, his name came up because he was in town. And so I told this fellow fireman, I said, hey, I would really love to talk to him, for whether it's 2 minutes or 2 hours. I'm new into this industry and I'd love to hear anything that he thinks a new person should hear. And so I was able to get on the phone with him, and essentially right off the bat, he said, hey, my family member probably talked me up a little bit big. I really don't have that big of a knowledge in it. He said, what we did is we could see there was massive fluctuations within crypto. And when you have massive fluctuations, there's opportunities to make,
Right.
very good
Massive
money.
money.
There's also opportunities to lose a lot of money. So he said, we wrote this program, and by we, he said, I had nothing to do with it, but that buys and sells Bitcoin and Ethereum. Long story short, I talked to him for about 10 minutes and established a relationship with him that he said, yeah, just text me whenever. And I wrote down some key notes, which I'll pass on to you. Nothing that's I would consider a game changer from the note, but it opens the door to things that people I wouldn't have looked at, or strategies or whatever. And so then you have to start exploring that. But to me, with guys or girls like that, it's like, I generally ask the same question. They're like, what would you like to know? And I say, if they know me, I say, how about you tell me where I'm screwing up the worst and what I should stop doing or should start doing. If I don't know them, I generally say, where does a new person usually screw up, or what's the biggest piece of information they're lacking early on? And that's how this conversation went. And so he gave me some things to kind of chase down and take a look at and whatever to dial it in, because I've found that generally the people that win or that good at things are operating 80% of what they do, or even 90% is are foundational pieces, a few different foundational pieces, either tools that they're using or parameters or whatever it is. Usually only 10 to 20% of it is emotional or flashy or whatever
Right.
else.
Yeah, just a simple basic strategy. This isn't obviously probably what he said, but like in investing, one of the things they tell the new people is just be consistent, because rather than taking all of your money and investing it in one thing right now at that price, if every week you're just putting in $100, then sometimes the price goes up and sometimes the price goes down, but you're just kind of buying the average of what that is. And over time, if it slowly just works its way up, then you're buying it and making money, and dollar cost averaging is just a simple strategy. But it's like, but if you know nothing about investing and someone introduces dollar cost averaging, you're like, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great place to start. There are
Right.
tons of more advanced strategies, but yeah, when you're doing this kind of stuff, you need to listen to the super simple stuff, because that's usually, if not the best strategy, even in the end, it's at least the one to get started with before you just jump in and go, all right, I've got $10,000 that I want to invest. I'm going to buy $10,000 worth of Ethereum, and you do that at $4,500, and a month later we're at 1,700. You're like, that was a terrible idea. But if you just work your way into the system, and even if you're buying it on its way down, that means you're getting more Ethereum every week for the same amount of money. And that is cool. And yeah, people like that, you want to listen to people who have been doing it, because usually they have something that they say, you know what, the trick is, when Ethereum was $150, most people were saying that it was overpriced, and that if you were buying it right now, you were an idiot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I learned that then when it was at $1,000, most people said Ethereum is overpriced and you were an idiot to be buying it right now. And then at 2,000, you know what I mean? And it's like, the story is the price is just generally going up. It's well used. It's been around now for 10 plus years. Just keep investing. It may be overpriced right now. Like when it was up at its peaks, it's like, well, now's probably not the time to throw in your life savings. But if you're putting in a percentage of what you have, no matter what price it's at, if you believe that in the future Ethereum will be worth more, then it doesn't matter whether you come in for $100 a week at $1,000 or $4,000. If in a couple of years it's worth $10,000, then you'll have made money. I
Yeah.
like nice, simple strategies like that, at least for getting started. I obviously shoot from the hip a lot of times, but I do have a safe wallet that I do a little bit more of my conservative, as far as conservative crypto investing goes, where I'm not trying to time it. I'm just putting money in there, not thinking about it. I've got a couple of safe projects that I invest in, and those are what I just put in every now and then. And then I've got some other wallets where I'm YOLOing everything in and selling when I shouldn't and buying when I shouldn't and getting all sorts of cool stuff. So
Just the gambler in you, it belongs
yeah,
to that wallet.
yeah, you got to have a good mix of both, because
I think you
again,
do.
you buy a million Dogelon coins, and one day they go up to a penny a piece, and boom, I've just made more money than I made in all my safe investing over the last 4 years. So you just
Yeah.
never know.
Yeah, you don't. But I agree with you. I think you got to have a little bit of both. I'll be right back.
Okay. today's episode of the MetaMentors, which we'll be recording later. We'll be going over Meta Hero. Here is the trailer.
I'm now typing a message into the Illuvium Discord, basically saying, I bought my first piece of land, but I don't know how to even look at it on Immutable X. Seems a little ridiculous, a little reckless, as you would say.
Nah, that's just living. All right. What time are we recording our actual episode today? Now that we've already got 2 hours of camera time in.
Hold on just a second.
Sure, I'll wait.
That's a good question. I was actually just thinking the same thing. We can pretty much do whatever. I think what I'm gonna do is just see how this auction looks. Probably about 12 hours, roughly, out from it closing, and I might try and swoop in and buy a tier 1 at that point, depending on if they're really low. So I'm good here on this. So we can end this live broadcast and go on over to Meta Hero for that recording whenever. I probably need a break, and I probably ought to say goodbye to my wife before she goes off to work. So that being said, do you want to reconvene in an hour, or
let's make it 2.
Make it 2 hours. Okay, perfect.
Can you do 2? That'll be 3 o'clock my time and 9 o'clock your time.
Yep.
Tell the wife bye, take a nap, have some breakfast.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea. That's a good idea. So let's do that. Let's wrap this live stream up, and I'll see you in 2 hours.
All right. Congratulations on your purchase, sir.
I appreciate that. We'll see how that goes.
I hope it makes us rich someday.
Well, clearly it's going to do that. See ya.
Well, I've clearly just attached myself to your project, so.
Well, we're in this together. If I'm winning, you're winning.
If I 100x on any of these projects, you at least 2x. That's in there for you.
Yeah. You be sure to just make sure Abby knows that, okay?
All right, deal.
I don't want no lip from her. I already get that on my own.
He promised. Yeah. He promised.
But hey, that does go along. You know, if I win, you win. That does go along with that whole theory that if I'm just like your YouTube channel, if you're winning, then it's like, hey, look, Ben's winning. Like, we're on track. I haven't made anything, but Ben's winning.
Somebody's doing it in the industry that we're trying to do it. So yeah, the closer that person is to you, the more likely it is going to happen for you. They say you're the product of the 5 people you hang out with. So as long as there's somebody always above us that we're hanging out with, it should theoretically pull us to the top.
That's the idea. All right. See you at 9 o'clock my time.
All right. See you, bro.
Word.